Good morning to everyone. This is Mamahon, and for today's discussion, I will be using a presentation prepared by Mr. Harmon of University of California, Westmont College. So this is a discussion about accounting for merchandising operations, summarizing our lesson 7 and 8. So at the end of today's discussion, the expectation is you should be able to identify the differences between a service and merchandising companies, to explain the recording of purchases under a perpetual inventory system, to explain and record the sales revenues under a perpetual inventory system, to explain the steps in the accounting cycle for a merchandising company, and to distinguish between a multiple step and a single step income statement. To give us a recap of what is a merchandising operation, a merchandising companies operates on a buy and selling of goods. The seller are being categorized into two. They can be wholesaler or it can be a retailer. So in the presentation provided here, the wholesaler kung saan matatawag natin na by bulk ang kanilang pagbebenta, the wholesaler will sell their products to the retailer. The retailer will eventually sell their product to the consumer. So in this illustration, the retailer serves as intermediary between the wholesaler and the consumer. So in this case, the primary source of revenues is referred to as sales revenue or sales. This account title is not present in a service type of business because in a service type of business, what you are using commonly is a service revenue. But since in a merchandising company, there is a good or inventory involved, the account title being used is sales revenue or sales. In terms of income determination or income measurement, so these are the accounts being used in a merchandising operation. Of course, you have your sales revenue, which is the primary source of income of a merchandising company. It can be categorized to gross sales or net sales. Later on, we will discuss that. You deduct all the cost of goods sold. So the cost of goods sold is one of the primary category or classification of expense in a merchandising operation. Cost of goods sold is the total cost of merchandise sold during the period. After deducting the cost of goods sold from your sales revenue, you will get the gross profit. Cost of goods sold and gross profit are not being used in a service business. It is used in a merchandising or a manufacturing type of business. After identifying your gross profit, you will deduct the operating expenses. So ano yung tinatawag nating operating expenses? Operating expenses are being categorized into two. It can be the selling expenses and the administrative expenses. When you say selling expenses, it is also known as distribution expenses. Technically, ang lahat ng expenses na to yung ginagamit mo in order to distribute or to sell your product. On the other hand, when we talk about office or administrative expenses, technically, it is being used or it is being incurred in the administrative purposes, in office purposes. For example, selling the paying the salary of the manager of the company, so that's part of administrative expenses. But if you are talking about paying the salary of the store manager, so that's part of your selling expenses. And after that, after deducting your operating expenses from your gross profit, you will get either a net income or net loss. Net income arises when the revenue is greater than the expenses, while net loss arises when the expenses are greater than the revenue. In terms of operating cycle, so the operating cycle of a merchandising company is, or linearly longer than that of a service company. Why? Because under the merchandising company, your cash will be used in order to buy inventory. So this inventory can be sold on cash or sold on credit. So if it is sold on credit, therefore it will go to the accounts receivable at account title. Once collected, it will go back to your cash. So the main difference between a service and a merchandising company in terms of its operating cycle is the existence of the inventory account. Here on the screen is the flow of cost for merchandising operation. Of course, you have your beginning inventory. So the beginning inventory of the period is actually the ending inventory of the previous period. So for example, we are talking about the beginning inventory of 2020. So it is the ending inventory of 2019. So aside from the beginning inventory, you will add all the purchases during the year in order to get your cost of goods available for sale. Dalawa lang ang pwedeng puntahan ng cost of goods available for sale commonly. First, it will go to the cost of goods sold if it is being sold, and it will go to the ending inventory if it is unsold. So companies use either a perpetual inventory system or periodic inventory system to account for inventory. What is the difference, or what is a perpetual and what is a periodic? Under the perpetual system, it maintains detailed records of the cost of each inventory, purchase, and sale. Ibig sabihin, every time bumibili or every time magbebenta ka ng inventory mo, under the perpetual system, ire-record mo siya. So lahat ng pumapasok na inventory at lumalabas ng inventory, if you are using a perpetual system, all of those things are being recorded. Considering that, records continuously show inventory that should be on hand for every item. So ibig sabihin, kapag tinanong ka, magkano or ilan ang inventory on hand mo at as of specific day, under the perpetual system, you can easily identify and you can easily know what is the inventory on hand as of a specific day. So the company determines cost of goods sold each time a sale occurs. On the other hand, under the periodic system, you do not keep detailed records of the goods on hand. Ibig sabihin, nagre-record ka lamang ng purchases mo, pero hindi ka nagre-record direkta sa cost of goods sold mo at meron kang nabenta. No, so lahat lang ng record mo ay kapag ikaw ay bumili. So how are you going to calculate the cost of goods sold? You started with the beginning inventory. You add all the purchases in order for you to get the goods available for sale. And at the end of the accounting period or at the end of the period kung saan kailangan mo nang mag-calculate ng cost of goods sold, you will conduct a physical count. Ibig sabihin, bibilangin mo kung ilan ang inventory on hand mo. Once identified yung iyong inventory on hand, once identified yung iyong ending inventory, ibabawas mo lang siya sa goods available for sale para mag-come up ka with the cost of goods sold. What are the advantages of using the perpetual system? Of course, kapag high unit values yung pinag-uusapan natin, ibig sabihin, medyo mahal yung product na binibenta natin. As in the case, halimbawa, nagbebenta ka ng mga sasakyan. So dahil malaki naman ang kanyang value, most probably its turnover is slow. Ibig sabihin, hindi tayo agad-agad nakakabenta ng mga product na medyo malaki yung value kasi hindi madalas siya nabibili kasi bibihira ang may capacity na bilhin siya. So the perpetual system is being traditionally used for merchandise with high unit values. And since meron kang continuous record ng iyong inventory account, it will show the quantity and cost of the inventory that should be on hand at any time. And it will also provide a better control over the inventories because lahat ng pumapasok at lumalabas na inventory sa iyo are being recorded on a timely basis. In terms of a merchandising company, dalawa yung major na or dalawa yung common na transactions involved. Una dito is the purchases at ang pangalawa ay yung sales. So let us discuss the recording purchases of merchandise considering that we are using the perpetual inventory system. Kapag bumibili tayo ng products, it can be made using cash or credit. Ibig sabihin, pwede tayong bumili ng magbabayad tayo agad or pwede tayong bumili pero utangin muna natin. Kailan normally nire-record ang ating purchases? It is normally record when goods are received from the seller. Dahil pag na-receive na natin yung goods from the seller, normally, nag-i-issue na sila ng invoice. So every time magkakaroon tayo ng credit purchase, it must be supported by purchase invoice. Purchase invoice is one of the source documents being used in a merchandising type of business. So presented here is an example of purchase invoice. So how are you going to record the purchase of merchandise? So in this case, the company uses as a purchase invoice the sales invoice prepared by PW Audio Supply. So the audio supply, PW Audio Supply here is actually our supplier. So sila yung nag-issue ng sales invoice. So pag nag-issue sila ng sales invoice, on our end, we are the stereo company. So on our end, purchase invoice naman siya para sa atin. So how are you going to record the journal entry to record this purchase of merchandise? So here, there is a total of 3,800. So 3,800. So in order to record that, of course, you write your date. The day is May 4. And since we are using the perpetual system, ang gagamitin nating account title ay inventory. Every time merong papasok at merong lalabas na inventory sa atin, if we are using the perpetual system, you will record it in the inventory account. So since it is a purchase on account, what you will be debiting is the inventory account and what you will be crediting is the accounts payable, which is an example of liability for the entire amount of 3,800.